Hello, everyone, and welcome to another World of Sasquatch. Today's recording is being recorded on 10/12/24. This is going to be more of an impromptu episode. So before I get going with this, I now open this circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. Joanna?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We ask benevolence to come in now with no conflicting agendas today to support and listen to and hopefully learn from this conversation today. And we ask for any malevolent or mischievous beings to be kind of swept out now, please, to allow for this conversation to be had. And with that, and with great blessings that we send your way, we say so be it.
So be it. Isaac says his favorite one was malfeasance entities. Maleficent is good, and maleficent beings, and then or malfeasant beings or malfeasance entities is his favorite one. Yeah, or malfeasance. I can't remember the slur you did, but it was pretty funny. Malfeasance beings, he says, gets the trophy. Or malfeasance entities. I'll have to. That sounds more like a legal term where you're saying under contract malfeasance entities. That sounds like a lawyer would have said that. Okay. But now to the topic. This is something that the forest people they began to talk about on a show called Agent X11 that I was on recently. And I'll provide a partial clip of the channeling that I did in that particular episode that goes along with this. That'll be at the end of the episode. There was a little bit said there, and some of the question and answer that was on that, since this applies to the topic today. They were referring to, and Broston at the time was referring to, a concept called the Interstellar Earth Alliance. Now, this is something that is a hard pill for people to swallow. This particular concept, people think that there's this alliance out there that's going to be fighting the cabal and fighting the negative entities, the Draco, and all this other stuff. Now, this is hinged on the cabal actually surrendering, things of that nature. That narrative that's been put out there, the QAnon narrative rolled with it too. You've seen all that stuff with JFK Jr., all that stuff that's out there. I don't need to rehash that particular part. We know a lot of that was fake. Okay, I said it. It's more of a regurgitation of the cabal changing stripes. It didn't quite work that way. There's still people that believe this Interstellar Earth Alliance concept. What I will say is, yes, there are white hats. Yes, there are people doing good things out there. This includes energy work and warrior type work. And technically, it all falls under the warrior category. But in this instance, magic, energy, and holding the space versus also doing physical soldier. It's the same difference as far as I'm concerned. So the two groups might not see it that way. But in this, there are the different military factions all fighting each other. You have some that may seem like they're defending you, but at the same time, they will be not in your best interest. They might just hate the person that you hate. This is the reason why we don't all speak German and have implants in our neck, kind of thing, because there's all these different factions fighting each other for position within the whole New World Order, or there are white hats that actually think well of us, the regular folk. So this is where this whole Interstellar Earth Alliance concept comes in. And why are we putting this on the World of Sasquatch? It's because they talked about it. And they've negotiated with the Galactic Senate and all this other stuff based on a lot of these different lies. And remember, if people remember back on the Galactic Interstellar Council after show where Chadwick Boseman actually said it was Beyond Black Panther was the name of the episode. If you want to see that on shorter URL is gic.show, $5 a month, go subscribe. All links will be put in the comments section or the description, where he said, basically paraphrased, anything public is narrative. And that stuck with me. that has always stuck with me. Think about this. If it's a true resistance cell against something evil, are they going to be talking about it on TV and the internet? No, they're not, or in any written form. The French resistance in World War II didn't come out with things they did until it was not only declassified, but until they were in the safe zone well after the war. Then they spoke about what they had to do. You don't actually talk about it as you're doing it. You're undermining everything. Think about that logically for a minute. If you talk about it, loose lips sink ships. Why are you talking about, we're going to do this to the cabal? That's like WWE on acid. We're going to get you back in the next match. Think of it that way. That is where this goes. And people hate it when I say these things, that this is just part of the narrative. They're like, well, does this mean evil's going to dominate the planet? No, it does not. They automatically go to the other end of the pendulum swing. And I see that constantly. Well, you're being very negative. No, I'm being real. And the forest people were also being real with that, where they also were talking about that, but also there were comments on Facebook that I saw not too long ago. I'm not naming any names. I'm not pegging anybody, but somebody basically said to in the hurricane, when Hurricane Milton came through. Oh, ask the GF or the Galactic Federation for help. The Interstellar Earth Alliance will get really heavily involved. I'm like, for one, too much red tape on the GF side. There is no such thing as the Interstellar Earth Alliance. We have to create something like that. That is just basically something we must make, but we have to be on a united front first and not in a New World Order sort of way. So this is where I'm at with this. This is a topic that the forest people are really itching to talk about, because they've been involved in some of these things, and they're seeing some of these reports out there. I know a lot of these reports are trolls and gaslighters trying to get people to fight online. I get this, but this is back to a lot of the propaganda put out there by the aviary group out there, a lot of propaganda and disinformation and misinformation put out there since the 90s, actually. Oh, this general is going to do this, and this guy is going to do this, and this document is coming out here, and this group met by Moon Ganymede in the solar system about this plan that's happening, and this blah 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 blah. This is actually starting to incense them a little bit. They're getting kind of fed up with it. So this is why this is on the world of Sasquatch. Is you have that they want to talk about it. You have so much mis and disinformation out there, like with evidence that's out there. People post things, and there's so many posts out there. It's flooding the market, kind of like with the Oregon, where the tower busters were banned for a short time because people were desperate to take the towers down. With the formula we use, they came, the military came back, government came back, banned it for 8 or 9 years, came back, flooded the market with glitterite, the fake Oregon, and you see everything labeled Oregon. Also, branching off of Sir Wilhelm Reich's work, they were trying to basically use the label in other areas, which is wrong. You can't do that.
Well, they did it.
They did it.
It's not ethical.
It's not ethical. When I say you can't do that, I mean, yes, they did, but no, you shouldn't. But that's usually what I mean, that people want that translated. This is what's happening in this area. There is so much flooding of the market with evidence, so much flooding of the market with who's saying whom with what and how, who, what, when, where, why, and how. People are really confused in this area. And it's causing more of a confusion than your gender dysphoria argument. So this is, believe it or not. So that's like second place to this one, believe it or not, in this, because it's localized in this particular community. The other is bigger in the other way, propaganda wise. This is more, this one's louder, just in a different area. And it tends to take first place trophy when it comes to cult of confusion. That's with the other one is labeled that. The they them is labeled that. This actually wins the trophy, the gold medal, because of the methodology and the type of confusion it is causing. So, Joanna, do you want to add anything to that?
No, let's just bring our guest in and talk about it.
And I know Fuma was itching. He was, yes, Isaac, he's fuming. Yes, Fuma. Yeah, it doesn't even rhyme. Okay, let me see. Because he's retarded, I know. So, all right, let me see here. It was Broston that came through before on that show. Like I said, I will try to get the snippet put in here. If I can't bring that down off of that other Rumble for whatever reason with the clip, I will put the link below. So, which probably is the easier choice. So, all right. They're saying they want it inserted. So, yeah. Okay. Who knows? Oh, yeah. Benevolent. Yes, my name is Fuma. Just like Isaac tried to say, fuming, it doesn't even rhyme. So, as I said before, Fuma Amastia means actually tree dweller, even though I don't sit in trees very often. Essentially, we were being compared to monkey that existed in the Vedic text, the Shas and Yakshas and things like that, and beings like that within your Vedic text. There was also the monkey people as well, like your Hanuman. We're related to them, but they are a different group altogether. Uh, give me a moment. There are, I should say, things spying on this particular meeting because of the topic. So forgive any subsequent blowback therein. It is quite annoying. Now, why call this the Interstellar Earth Alliance? This is exactly what people believe that this is, or the Alliance. This was put out there by a lot of your propagandists that had to do with avian groups and the like, an aviary. This is mis and disinformation. Is there a savior group out there of heroic white hats that are going to march on the Capitol and all of these things? And you've heard this for multiple years, even a couple of decades now. No, no, no. And I say this thrice in this way because, and a triple thread it, because this particular topic gets under our goat because it gets people away from not only working on themselves, but then seeing the world around them and seeing things for what it is. It's another, he calls it another cult of confusion, like your they them topic. And this is absolutely true. This one actually, as he says, wins the belt to the trophy because of the amount of confusion compacted in a particular community and the mis and disinformation caused by the aviary group and their particular brand of branding, let's just say. This is, excuse, there are waves associated with this particular topic. This is why we wanted to get this out there quickly. This is there an alliance? No, you have to become that. And labeling it something is not necessarily necessary. It's just becoming a space holder where you are then becoming someone that is more into unity than into separation. Yes, there is the separation of the densities where, yes, when you have to walk away from something or someone, yes, that's a frequency split. Different story. Or someone that is maybe sphincter clenching too much. That in this particular way, that is an instant splitting of the densities. By the way, when this happens to anyone, when this happens. Now, it is more or less you're agreeing to disagree and you're holding the space of two or more walk in my name type of concept, aside from any of Enlil's proclivities to claim the space. This is what you are up against. This is what is actually currently happening. Now, I will go into questions there. I know there's a phone over here doing some waves, and there's the not necessarily the computer, it's mainly the phone. I know you need a secondary recorder, but in the future it is actually preferred that it not be in the space. I know other phones don't do as much as his does. Not only it's because there's paranormal work that has been recorded on that in the not too distant past. But at the same time, there is how can I put it kindly, marker on it that you couldn't really easily remove. I didn't say it couldn't be, It's just not easily. It's actually a piece of technology that is with underneath the surface that is not holographic or photonic. It is a physical chip that is put into the literal motherboard of the phone. It's more of a tag. And I hate to say this, it was military that have done this. They know how to pull it apart, put the thing in there, and then close it up again. Very much like his friend knew how to open his computer, put the gel on the processor and heatsink, and then close it up again. It's the same thing. In the future, we do not need that as the backup. And so I will go into questions.
So it's an interesting, again, topic to discuss in general. So I'd like to kind of clarify and ask some questions, because there are multiple races on this planet. Whether or not you can see them directly, they phase in and out, right? Or they're here and just in hiding because they are in the same exact frequency. There are multiple groups, and these multiple groups come from, are descendants, a lot of them, from galactics, right, who seated themselves on this planet.
And there are some originals from the time frame as well. So you have a mix.
Yes. So my point is that you've alluded to and said sometimes about, again, your group goes to the Galactic Center or to people and advocates for certain things because you have a stake in this planet.
Yes.
I would assume, I'm guessing, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would think then the Untumbans are doing it. I would think that the ancient Mayans are doing it. You know, I would think that other groups would be doing it as well that are related to being here, a stakeholder for real with people of their own that they consider of their own living on this world. But it's not a unified front. It's right now these individual groups that are doing it. A long time ago, I was inspired to ask the question. I don't think it was on air. It was just a general question, because for some reason in my thought processes, I thought that unity in the background amongst you all wasn't where it was supposed to be itself. Like it was behind, like that unity, that there should have been more of a unity at that moment. Now, I was told, no, that's not true at that time. It may have been something that I was thinking more of something from the past, where more of the unity was there, and I was confused as to the present, and I understand that. So I think it would be interesting then to have a discussion on all of these different players besides humanity and humans on this planet, and really what is going on with the groups, because I know some of these relationships are okay, but some of them are not.
Some are tenuous, and also, even though the Interstellar Earth Alliance is basically being said as a more human united white hat group, which again isn't the thing or a thing. There are other groups that are tenuous with one another, and there's some that wish Earth's salvation. There are some that are pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to open it up here. Some don't care how it opens up. Some just want resources and want trade, which, okay, we get it. This is your thing. But at the same time, you want it opened up for the right reasons, not just commerce. And I get the push for commerce. I even get the push for medical. There's a medical group out there that is doing the same. And they may be on your GIC in the not too distant future. They were upset at the fact that they were propagandized in your Star Trek Voyager. They were called Vidians in that series, where they looked like zombified body harvester types in that, and they were fairly upset at that reference. It was someone giving them the finger. They're called Velodian, not Vidian. So they're itching to come in here. Now, I'm not actually supporting a lot of the rest of the information that particular insider put out, but that is true. But then there are other races that some of these insiders put out that happen to be true. And there are also other races that are being defamed by that particular network in question. Let's see. Let's say us as well. We barely had any mention at all, which I'm okay with that. Especially on that network. There is a front going within that, you would say black hat inclination, let's say, to control the narrative. This is important to the conversation. How? The races that out there that are doing the hedge betting, like you were talking about on the energies around that surround us last night with Michael, this actually is a good conversation as well because of the hedge betting that was being described on that particular show with the different groups that support different people. And I will refine, but no naming. We actually support the no naming completely. Where there are these hedge betted, he uses the term maid puppet, but yeah, all right, for the moment until there's a better term created. Whereas they will not only take an agent that is working for like the CIA or the aviary, both have done this. And people always say, well, the CIA can't operate in the United States. Yes, they do. By the way, they created the aviary. Okay. This is so, just to make that clear. There are people put into these communities that are either A, representing a particular race, or B, they are getting a voice to skull that is getting particular messages from three-letter agencies. Now, there is a growing spiritualist movement, you would say, the one that your Harry Houdini fought. That is actually something that is the chosen religion, New Age narrative, as your cabal would put it, the one that all the religions were going to refine into. The first shot at it was Christianity back in the original time frame with your Pharaoh Akhenaten, where he was trying to form the worship of Aten. It didn't quite work. The people revolted, rightfully so. They tried to wipe it from history, knowing what it would become. Caesar comes along and takes all the information from the Library of Alexandria. He knows now of this same religion, and it becomes eventually the religion of Rome. And they try to solidify it through the whole Jesus narrative. Now, that was the original attempt at a new world order. It didn't quite work. It fell into ruin. But the beings behind it were patient. Now, later on, you have the New World Order trying to form your New Age religion. How do they do it? They form it through your New Age community in the 90s. They even labeled it New Age religion. You see, this was a synchronicity you saw in your Wi-Fi files the other night, you see. So, with that said, they through the 90s there were constant portals and doors being opened. Therefore, more and more of this activity was going on. You also have more of the psionic dampening. This is why he felt in your darker side of the harmonic convergence conversation, which is very valuable right now, I might add, to put back out there. No matter how you need to put it back out there, paid or not. From when he saw himself sitting in a movie theater in 1981 and it was fine, but as they went through the 80s, fast forward to the 90s, it was bad. Fast forward to now, it was worse. Because of the psionic dampening, they are disguising this some of this as an earth change or a solar flash. Within that narrative, there is one kernel of truth. Where are there cosmic energies? Yes. Are there earth changes? Absolutely. Is there terraforming going on? Yes. In a century's time, as Indrid Cold said on him and Bjorn's conversation not too long ago, this earth will be terraformed where there's no ice and snow. And your basalt pillars are the remnants of that technology. This is why the mythology of the two brothers at Nan Madol, as he said, were trying to pick up the pieces and use them, those basalt pillars, because knowing that these were old bits of extremely millions of years ago, ancient terraforming tech from the original seeding period, from the Order 65 movie period. This is from that. They didn't have the resources to power them up at the time, so they tried to utilize them in a slightly different manner. As forms of talisman-like protection at the time. They had high technology on the Maria, where some of our people are from, but it wasn't as much as it was in the time before the Orion Wars. You see, much worse tech. This is why you see in your Star Trek Picard season 1 where they try to leach into another time frame and you have the control AI coming forth that's more powerful. It's more like that. And they had the women of Atlantis, the whole bit being shown in that. The reason I bring this bit of history up is because, fast forward to now, And also in World War II, where they were trying to get Hitler to get resources back for them, as what was explained, Tartarian resources and the like. They're still doing this, by the way. Hitler trying to find the artifacts, like your Christ spear, which doesn't actually exist. It was a planted artifact made up again by Rome trying to solidify religion. Now, you have now where people are talking to different beings, or not. You have people in the community, the disclosure community, that not the ones you're interacting with. There are other groups out there. This is why Valiant Thor suggested a name change for your GIC, because there were certain things anchoring to different narratives, like the word interstellar, for instance. Even though we are currently using this, we are making a point with it. Can you flip this to a different timeline, or like you did with your Merkaba symbol? Absolutely. But there are more eyes on this in a particular narrative than there would be to maintain a manifestation of that caliber. Even if you interlocked it to a different timeline, the two or more walk in my name would try to reappropriate. It wouldn't work completely, but you get the idea, an anchor, as it were. These people that are working in this community are, some of them are hedge betting, some of them are agents, and then also the community that you were talking about in space, the Galactic Senate. Do they agree on a lot of things? No, they do not. Do they argue on a lot of things? Yes. If you look in your Star Wars, your first prequel movies where you see the Galactic Senate, this is what it looks like. This is why also they were in the movies, they were taking advantage of those committing to a false flag, set of false flag narratives with the droids and the stormtroopers and all of this, like the Emperor. And this was basically showing how the Orions and them infiltrated, because these bastards never got along. They couldn't completely unify. They would agree to disagree, but they get into arguments where they were throwing things at each other at that time. They couldn't align on how to proceed. Here comes the Orions going, we can fix this for you. And committing to a set of false flags that ended up incurring parts of the original Orion conflicts eventually. Now, there's also your Camino group, which is in your Attack the Clones movie, where they actually help people alter their own eugenics. But this is an issue, but to each their own. It's not like in Star Trek where that's been illegalized within the Federation. That would have to be humans that advocate for that. And your Ebons also participate in this nonsense. Now, is it good for curing some things? Yes, but I won't go completely into eugenics. But within that, that's a big problem along with the soul trade. But in this instance, the Senate, or in regards to Earth, actually, in some parts, prefer a narrative be in place so they can slip in via the New World Order, via any, how can I put this, conflicts that would ensue via any narrative. They can slip in whatever they wanted. Some are in favor of this, some are not. Now, your fake alien invasion that's been kiboshed, your fake New Age God has been kiboshed. However, your manicured spiritualist movement, or you call them the New Age Mafia, still is self-farming this. This is why you are running into some of these cliques. You are running into some of these different gatekeepers that are gatekeeping that particular bit of information. Not all of them. Some of them genuinely believe it's for good, like with your church. Some of them genuinely believe it's for good, like your father at Mort is part of, or was part of, the Mozen sect, which is the yin to the yang, which is the other side of the darker side of the Catholic Church, and your Vatican Library. This is no different. This will eventually change shape itself. But this is something that you may continually run into because they made it quite large. Am I saying that there's going to be one religion or one ring to rule them all? I can't say that some of the narrative won't succeed, but that is up to people to decide whether this does or not. Do you want your culture to dissolve into a and believe a narrative, or you want to keep your national pride and your national heritage, but just unite as a common people, but then have galactic standard to trade with? Also, do you want New Babylon, which is your North American coalition, do you want this? Even though you're on a collision course with some of this already, trying to collapse your country's economy. And trying to bring about different laws. This is why you're seeing European ideals trying to encroach on this, like your European Union and such. Not all of it's bad. Not all of it's bad. The face of the earth will change. But what that looks like is up to you. Now, should you have all one thing, all conservatism or all liberalism? No. No, 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 no. Your society is on a collision course with the galactic community, regardless of what you do. What that looks like and how you react to this situation and how you discern between deception, lies, and truth is up to you. We encourage you to always seek the latter, which is truth. And are people entitled to their own truth? Yes, but there's a difference between somebody's own truth and a bit of information that is truth. He always compares it to the cop interviewing an accident victim or something. Okay, or in a car accident or something, or a robbery. What did the person look like? Were they black, white, red, yellow, blue? Or was the car, was the car red, the car blue car? Was the tires, what did the tires look like? Was it day, night? And you always have a ton of different perspectives. That will always be, that will never go away, and you don't want that to go away. But will there also be people that will act like Gene Roddenberry said and kill themselves in weird ways? Unfortunately, you can't get around that because people will be weirdly processing. The sphincter or butt clenching will take weird turns, but generationally this can be solved, like Valiant Thor says. I know this was all over the place, but generally speaking, again, Earth is ready to be eventually here opened up to the galactic community at large and dimensional community like ourselves.
Well, every now and then we do a quick finger since you were talking about it, always asking others' perspective on how do you think humanity is doing as far as more of a population being ready to open up and see things as they really are, versus the ones that aren't going to take it too well and process it too well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, over the past 6 months, there's been so much that's been happening. What's your perspective on that with, in general, humanity as a whole, having to, look at this and go, what's really going on, and starting to open themselves up to see it?
Because of your current events, people are opening up to the possibility that certain things are going on, narrative or not. And one could say that can be praised for that. But it is important to remember not to fall for these narratives in the end. You have to discern between truth and lies. Now, how many people have done this? I can still say that the number is higher than it was prior to year 2020. This is the only reason that was even conceivably allowed. We can't always step in, unfortunately. When people always say, why was this allowed? They're usually referring to God or spirit or true benevolent source creator, what have you. Why was this allowed? Because this is allowing for that timeline narrowing to where people actually do, you can say wake up, but the term is, or the concept is, where people just are not tolerating lies. It doesn't matter what belief system they're under. A lot of people will eventually get to the point where they're tired of being messed with. And it doesn't matter who they are. This will end up uniting people, but as it stands, there are more people than there were even in before 2020 and 2020 in regards to this. It is steadily going up. Is it to, like, say, the halfway point population-wise? Not even close. So it is working. But I can't exactly give a definitive number because that shifts even as the winds blow. But it is more than it was, say, in your 2020, 2021. As we approach 2025 at the time of this episode, and you're almost to your Halloween, as it were, just know there are more and more people noticing number coding, like you noticed the 7s and 9s and 5s and stuff with Star Trek. There are more and more people noticing that, hey, maybe they're being fooled on something. This is why your JFK Jr. thing happened as the flub with your President Trump and the like back then in 2020. This is why some of this happened. so that you can see your whole world's a stage and you're just subjects within it. You say, not intentionally quoting Thomas, you say, but in this, you are seeing the theater puppets. People are seeing that more clearly, but they're still dividing lines. They didn't fall for the Civil War thing, but they're still dividing lines. They're noticing the propaganda, but they also have to notice the matador with the cloth waving too, the gaslighting. They're starting to notice this. The more people realize this and the more people meditate for peace in this, the more these narratives, they might turn up volume for a second and then they will recede. This is what has to be ultimately achieved. Calm. Yes, fight for what you believe. Be a warrior. Yes, this magic I'm speaking of is part of being a warrior. You say mystical warrior and all this other stuff that is being said. We also want to say that some of in the Sasquatch channeling community are not channeling what was being said as well. This was said on a previous episode. Who are these shows really talking to? This is also going to be an issue where you will start to see people getting so fed up, especially also the woke stuff in the video game community, like what he was seeing, all of us. You will start to see this balancing out. But there are not necessarily permanent scars, but there's scarring as a result. Not just traumatic, but there's societal. Like, say with your mask culture for a minute. You still see it because it was inserted. You'll see this for some time after, even a couple decades. Less and less, but you'll still see it. Like in your country or Japan, that became part of the culture. It integrates into the culture. They know over time. The bad guys knew over time. You're from your new Schwabenlander to your other groups out there, knowing it would become a thing. There's some things you can't allow to become a thing, like harming of your children or transing of the children, things of that nature. The reason I bring all this up is these are the different narratives that are popping up. These things are actually, even though they are evil sources, are actually waking people up. No, regardless of what belief system they're under, they're noticing things. This is the important thing. They don't have to be psionically charged like himself or yourself or us. They don't even have to be speaking to us. They don't have to be speaking to anybody. What needs to happen is the noticing of lies and the noticing of deception. You don't need a psychic for that one. You don't need people that are ingrained in a singular thought, ideal, or awakened state that they think the other people will be ashamed and bow their heads in shame for not noticing. That's never going to happen. That's a new age religious ideal, and that is bullshit. What needs to happen is people, doesn't matter who and what they are and what they're into, have to notice this. That's really all there is to it.
And some are, and I will say that they don't know, much about any of this. You don't, and we've said it before, you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
What you just have to do is
hold the space.
Is hold that space and say, wait a minute, and then not agree with it. I don't want this. I don't want representatives like this. I don't want any of this.
You don't want any of this. Change it. Then it's always the focus on change. Calm and change is what it is.
Right. And so noticing it, we've always said noticing it is the beginning of that change. And so because most decent people, whether they are involved in any of these communities or not, whether they've ever thought of it in their lives or not, that noticing it, and most people are decent, wouldn't want it, don't want it, and it just adds to that energy of the change.
Like Broston said, it doesn't matter if they are an energy worker or a soldier. They're in the lanes they're supposed to be to bring about that change, even if there's soldiering or fighting done, or if there's magical work being done. It makes no difference.
Exactly. So there's no reason for people of the community who feel that they must spread the word or that others are letting us down because they haven't acknowledged any of what you're into. They don't have to. And that's the big thing. You just have to hope again for everyone's highest good that people are noticing, because that's the phase that we're in right now that's really important. I'm going to ask, I really want to go back to the galactic community, but I have to tie this one question in. There have been people out there that are channelers and different things. And again, going back to what their perspective is of this particular time frame in humanity, I want to know your perspective on this statement that I've said, because they've had their perspective. That basically we are in a time frame of making these decisions, birds of a feather flock together, and there will be such a frequency difference that in fact it will cause some to stay in a certain frequency to have a certain experience on an earth, and others will go to a different place to have their experience play out on an earth at the frequency that they want to experience.
Yes, you're all on Earth. You're talking about the timeline splitting and stuff like that.
Things like that. And basically, you know, they've even given time frames that you got 30 more years to decide, things like that. So I'm just curious about, you know, what, again, some perspective. Do you agree with the concept of people getting into frequencies and they kind of have to in some way separate themselves to be able to have their experience, or what?
Yes, the splitting of the densities. When you're intuitive, you intuit something out. When you know on some fundamental level that where you're at is not where you belong, you must honor this. You must honor all synchronicities. You must honor this. Yes, would you end up in that frequency in the timeline in which you belong? Yeah, I can honestly say this. But is it happening as prolifically as some insiders are saying, where it's a billion times a second? From the perspective of whom that person is speaking to, it would look like that from someone watching all the timelines. It would look like this. But from boots on the ground, is it operating quite like that? Not exactly. Do you have 30 years before the timelines drift? Do they drift? Yeah, like branches of a tree, like the Yggdrasil tree is what it is, where they drift, like you see in Loki with the tree. They drift towards each other and away from each other. Can you jump to that other reality and make it easier or not as easy? Like in your Star Trek Discovery, where that guy was trying to go to that other timeline, that other universe, and also the Dark Mirror universe. They said your agent Daniels actually said in that scene where the mirror universe drifted further apart and it was near impossible to get to it. That's a truth. But you have this absolute time limit in which to do this. I disagree with that assessment. You will experience these things if you are meant to. Is this on an individual basis? Yes, but can you have people that come with you? Absolutely, because their oversouls are still there with you. Are you talking to a different version of them sometimes? Yes, but their oversouls are still there with you. So it is essentially still the same person, but maybe a different avatar. Maybe they had a wound in one reality and they didn't in another. Maybe they were alive in one reality and they aren't now. They aren't now, or maybe they were dead in one reality, aren't now. You know your Mandela thing. But is this also little parallel timelines? Are there these big other parts of the tree, like your parallel universes? Absolutely. So the multiverse effect, or the multiverse of madness. But in this, will these spread further apart? Can you predict these like the weather and say, well, in 30 years, they spread further apart? That is the assessment of someone that is seeing it from a particular perspective. Does it look like it would go this direction? Yes. Will it? That's not a certainty. That's like with your weather. They could say it'd be a sunny day today, to tomorrow, or this time next week. Is that a certainty that it will? No. They just are going off the data platform, or the mean average of all the data they are accumulating and collating. Now that particular group, I will not name them. That particular group has their own agenda in mind as well, by basically saying this is hardcore. This is the way you do this. Yeah, putting a sword in the ground. Are they wrong in some areas? No. Are they wrong in saying theirs is the only way? Yes. And they would argue that it is not their way, is the way from their perspective. Are there multiple perspectives and perceptions? Yes. Are there multiple timelines people go to? Yes. This is why creation brought this about to begin with, to bring about these ultimate choices in life. Go this way or that, or plateau and not move, or be a space holder and continue to be that change. The choice is ultimately that oversoul and yourselves as to what is being fixed within themselves and the avatar, as he says, grounding in the I am presence currently. Bring out the better parts of your avatar and the better parts of your oversoul, correcting things. There in the library, auditing that and auditing yourself always. This is exactly what is going on. Is that group a wee bit pushy? Yeah, they are. Are there others that are hedge betting like what they're doing? And that's exactly what they're doing. They're rolling the dice themselves, but they do it in a kind of a passive aggressive way. So yeah, are they one of those? Yes. Do we actually focus on people we feel are more compatible as well? Yeah, we do. We're in this. We're in this. So we're playing for keeps, but we're not rolling the dice. This is where we're at as a people.
So the reason I wanted this conversation to be had, and it's going to then feed back into the next line of questioning, is it is important, again, from in my lifetime, what I have seen occur is, again, people were reasonable. People could play in the sandbox. People could get along. And it's just been over my lifetime where it's been, this or that. I mean, the division, you either agree with me fully or you're out. You know what I mean? You are nothing. And this has been tried to be concreted into the philosophy of how we conduct ourselves, and really out there badly right now. What really, again, we talk about organic unity and everything, is to look at things and understand it bigger as perspectives of what can be. And again, agreeing that, yes, is this a time where people, as they've always been choosing what they want? Yes. Are there interesting dynamics, going on of a bigger future of how people are going to get along or not get along on this earth, and that type of experience? Yes. Does it necessarily have to go down, this path in this way? No. Would that group really want to hold on to that, whatever it is that they're preaching? Yes.
Yes.
And if you have that understanding, that then you can choose to have an olive branch to try and get along with the group. But again, then it's the other group's decision to be like, well, we're an all or nothing group. And that's fine. Then go play in another sandbox, kind of. We don't have to get along.
Some of these races are also playing for keeps, but for their own perspective.
Right. And so they kind of, unfortunately, do perpetuate all or nothing in their information and how their information is put out. They're not really willing to bend a little bit. And again, that's common in humanity right now. You can watch it all on TV if you want, about how people are getting. I think it's important, again, to say that organic unity will actually develop when people are allowed to come in with different perspectives. And then you see what is it that we can all agree on and focus mainly on that, and then kind of be okay with not focusing on a pure line of information that somebody wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
I bring this back because that is another galactic group. So I bring that back to now the groups of non-humans who are living here on Earth, because it seemed to me from everything that we've learned that way back in the day, when this earth was seeded, when these people and the groups to come in to colonize were coming in, there really was an attempt, and it seemed to be successful for a while, where people were getting along, that there was a bit of unity. But we talk about humanity's fall, but there seemed to be a fall of all involved. I don't want to, I hate to use the word, but it's a descriptive word, and I don't know a better word, so you can tell me a better word. A de-evolution of a sense of not just humans, but of other groups as well. That
and technologically and mentally as well. There are, so I said, some of the old guard as well, but there was also physical de-evolution, like face eaters are a prime example, or skunk ape is a prime example of that. Also genetic tampering that was going on. Other groups that may have been more cohesive back in the day became sometimes de-evolved versions of themselves, like in your Doctor Who, where he was on that world was nothing but gases in the parking garage or the underground street where everybody was locked in there for years and years, or your David Tennant version where he sees all these crab-like beings in this gas, where he said, "Oh, these were world builders at one point, but it looks like they de-evolved." And the other man he was with looks at him and goes, "It doesn't look like they're world builders, you know." And he said they de-evolved mentally. That actually happens. Some can de-evolve into a more of an abomination state. He even has an example of a cartoon when he was younger called Dinosaurs, or Dinosaurs was the name of it. Whereas some of them were showing the Draco, other ones were showing the world builders from back in that period, which they can speak to this themselves. They look like brontosauruses, where they had the ability, the good guys had the ability to aim at the bad guys a weapon that devolved them into the dinosaur form. They took a brontosaurus guy and turned him into a brontosaurus, and they couldn't reverse it at that point. This is a form of that was majorly sped up, and the technology does exist to do this, by the way. That was actually disclosure back in the 80s. But this actually can occur naturally, well, naturally, where somebody becomes more of an abomination and they want to become with a concept like your Talarian group in your casinos wanted to de-evolve into an addictive energy. They have not succeeded in this, nor are they going to be allowed to. They have been removed from the scene because they were manipulating, they were siphoning off of not only human addictiveness like your Draco, they were becoming that energy and they subsequently needed to be removed. Now, would we leave choice to people? Yes, but this was interfering in human evolution as well and human thoughts. So we had, even though one could argue others are doing this, this one was different than the others. Whereas they were becoming a concept. Now, if you come from a concept and become a being, that's great. De-evolution is frowned upon, even though that can happen. That is an abomination to nature. As far, even though that can naturally happen, others want to induce it and become something. Like the ascension narrative that's out there. People want to become one with Source Creator. You are one with the benevolent Source Creator. Why would you need to return to that? That's death of the true self and individuality. You already have a higher self or oversoul that contains that library. Why would you have to ascend to attain that when you can ground that here? This is a contradiction in terms. This was part of the soul trade nonsense where you were being fed into a false heaven. That I won't go completely into again, but because we've heard that as ad nauseum, which is fine. But now it's time to get into the other subjects. But this is where I'm at.
So it's again, so just to give proper perspective, it's not just humanity that's having to dust themselves off and, say, wait a minute, and try to create something better. It's actually most all of those that actually call this place home are kind of in the same place because that organic unity hasn't resurfaced a lot in those areas. People maybe are advocating independently to, let's say, the Galactic Federation, the individual groups, but that unification has to be actually worked on as well.
Yes.
So I don't
They're
think
a shadow of their former self, you see. They even though they're around for millions and millions of years, 140 to 160 million years, as a matter of fact. Even before that. They fell from grace quite some time ago. They are the descendants of those that lived in those times. Very much like in Star Wars, you have the Knights of the Old Republic, and then you have the Jedi. So it's kind of like that time differential. It's essentially the same difference.
And again, and it goes to some of the things that we were saying, that there's no saviors out there going to save us, and it's a more complicated story because the ones that are right here with us are actually trying to themselves rebuild and uplift and come
build
back
alliances, yes.
Right. And so we're in a sense, we're all in this together, which is not this is not a doom or gloom story, but in order to be able to accomplish what we want, there has to be understanding of what appears to be the reality of the situation that we're in. And so that's really part of, this conversation. So you shouldn't be scared of this. You should just be aware of what are going on so that, again, you'll start to see it. You'll start to see the contradictions. You'll start to see the things and go, wait a minute. as regular people are doing, whether you have this piece of information or not. And then again, we collectively make decisions that will drive how this world is. But no one is left behind. If you want to still be medieval and cut people's heads off or whatever, you can do it. But as a world as a whole, it will probably be being done somewhere else down the road, not necessarily here. But as you said, it's not that their avatars are necessarily going to just poof disappear.
Yeah.
But you'll be dealing with ones of that oversoul now that will be engaging more in the exploration of unity and getting along.
Yes, just like the left behind concept. Wrong. There's no such thing as left behind at all. There's nothing and no one left behind. Now, in wartime scenarios, of course, you're rescuing people, no one left behind, no man left behind. But in this, that whole prayer where there was only one set of footsteps on the sand type of crap, that does not happen. In fact, we leave footprints quite often to show you that does not happen. We're just attempting to make communications at that point, and other forest people and Sasquatch groups do this. But the whole thing where all of a sudden people are disappearing, like the whole rapture thing, like with Thanos doing that. That was a Kabbalist viewpoint, as you saw in that Y files. That is we're going to kill what came before. If we can't balance it by reducing the population, we will kill everything and start over. That is that communist mindset, starting with what can basically get rid of what came before. That's your childhood end series type. Whereas they destroyed all history. That's another thing that's trying to happen now with your monuments being ripped down by BLM, all of that stuff. Where they are attempting, that group in the books attempted, and the series attempted to, and did get rid of all the nefarious past, and they presented themselves to humanity, and people saw them as gods once again. It was like nothing had happened previously. This is the crap that is actually going on currently as well. Why do you think there are monuments and also in the Middle East temples that are being destroyed by militant groups? Because not only were these the opponent of whatever hedge better is doing this, they want to wipe all that out so they can present themselves anew to people that are now ignorant of their presence and only would have seen them as figures from mythology. This is what we would like to prevent.
So, I know this may be, I don't know how people feel about this show. I think there's been a lot of information just on a small subject. So I'm just going to let you say whatever last words you want to say, and then we'll leave the conversation.
And this is also where Enlil was trying to wipe out the temple of Baal, all of that, attempting to wipe out known history. But it's good when people know history. You must honor your history, even if it's offensive to you. There's always going to be some, he calls them tit babies, but somebody offended or snowflake offended. You're never going to be rid of that. It'll just reduce over a period of time. And also there are some of those snowflakes and tit babies out there in the galaxy that can hear me at the moment, that are also within the Senate, which are quite loud in the Senate about their little offended nature. There are also militant groups within the GF that are proposing different, how can I put this, different ideologies on Earth that do not need to be imposed. This is where you get some of the other hedge betters. I must cut this conduit here because there is a inordinate amount of interference. Indrid Cold also touched on this subject as well, and within the Lonulus material. That there are even some of their own people here on Earth that were sent here as on a ambassadorial mission and are now within we hate to use the word banished or apostate, but that's their term, on Earth. I will leave this here because certain mission parameters were not adhered to within even the oversoul wanted. Even though the avatar has choice, you get what I'm trying to say. I will not go further into this subject until the Lonulosians themselves touch on this, but I will then disengage. So thank you for having me on. Whew. All right, and by the time you see this on the YouTube and on the Rumble, that other GIC that he was referring to with basically the man called Cold will be on both the GIC Rumble and on the YouTube, normal YouTube. Joanna, did you want to
Yeah,
add
I
anything?
hope everybody enjoyed this conversation and, got something out of it.
I can feel a lot of interference at the moment. That's why I'm wearing this today. Again, so it helps during sessions and shows. So as of right now, I will close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So thank you, everybody. Bye bye now. All right.
I do have another question, but not for air.
Okay, just leave this going and just, what is it?
So this is my curiosity. Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot. And so when you have, I want to hear what few men have to say about it. But when you have this whole conversation about, humans being taught to be in the constant anomaly, let's say calm state, because other races can't handle our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
That's the conversation I want to have, because you know I get a little perturbed because I'm like, well, they need to grow too.
Exactly, he's saying exactly there. Like he said, he was saying there are those are the tit babies he was aiming at, where basically they're just gonna have to grow a set of balls.
And learned it because it's like, that's changing human behavior. It's trying to change us.
Hence why there have been behavioral changes, genetically eugenics operations, and also the COVID thing and all that other stuff. Yeah, and the nanotech and all this, and the mRNA alterations and everything. And hence also there was also a race of reptilians that I met in Arizona that had masks on and wanted people to put masks on because they couldn't handle human breath. And it's like, okay, who cares? Just wear a suit, like Caution has encountered suit in Babylon 5, wear a suit.
Well, I mean, do what you need to do, but again, it's not just humans that are supposed to bow down to you.
Yeah,
That's like hazing.
that's
So I
essentially
don't
it.
like hazing.
This is
They're
something
hazing humanity.
this is something they're negotiating with as well to make sure that they were basically giving the finger to a couple of the groups that were acting as tit babies. So it's like doing that exact thing.
Because it's interesting. They talk about, oh, we're trying to find the ambassadors, but you can't even act human if you're an ambassador. You can't even have the full range of, emotions. God forbid you get mad at somebody, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, because
I
then
just,
they get hit with that psionic wave, and they're like, "Ooh, I'm offended," like some of the other groups
right,
there.
like, you know what, you need to learn humanity then, and you need to get over it too. You need to grow yourself. So that's been my whole thing, because I'm like, well, obviously I would fail at being the ambassador, because that's what I would be saying, basically, you're going to get us out as we are. But it is a concern to me about, all of the genetic tampering to take that out of humanity that's
This is
being
being fought.
attempted.
They're saying this is being fought, navigated against. So that's what he meant by eugenics
Well, I didn't
alterations.
think I was going to ask the question. Then I'm like, I don't know if I don't know what kind of firestorm this would be online, but to bring this up. But that's why I didn't do it.
Because neutrality is fine, but at the same time, you also have to fight to not have good things taken away and change. He sees your point. That's what he was firing at against in the galaxy, the eugenics alterations and the behavioral
But it's
bring
not.
alterations. So
But it's not ready for a primetime conversation yet.
you can, you can.
Because that's kind of like, again, with people put through, again, certain programs that kind of were, this was being stressed, that this is how you have to conduct yourself to the rest of, others out there. They can't handle you versus, well, maybe the others need to grow too.
Yes, and also this is what Leon and Treyon were mentioning at Spirit Lake as well about some of the eugenics and behavioral alterations as well. That's why that show got dumped off of YouTube, is because of that exact thing, and that's what they were referring to, were behavioral changes like that. So who says we can do what we want? It's just with that information. Yeah, it's just that's who he was giving the finger to.
Okay.
So basically saying, well, there's tit babies over here that are easily offended, that are affecting your community that's easily offended. That's another faction that's at work there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, oh no, you must all be of this mentality. You must all be, yeah, calm is great. You want that in negotiating. You want to be that. But it doesn't mean that you're not angry at some things and you're
Yeah.
not sad at some
It is
things.
part of control because they'll be like, oh, I feel you getting your temper up. You need
Oh,
to stop that. Oh,
like,
I feel you, whatever. You need to stop that.
he said they were represented in very accurately in Star Trek Voyager, where Voyager comes across that culture that can't stand the emotions of other aliens, and it's actually outlawed on their planet. And they try to erase B'Elanna Torres's negative engrams in her brain. It's like, no, you're fundamentally altering a person and their culture. Like the Klingons are all negative in it. They're like, no, this is a culture. You can't do that. And, I would say to that, I always saw in my head that I would basically say, no, you have to have some kind of dampening technology where you're not affected. And he's saying, bingo, that's who they were representing in that show were races like that are sensitive. Ooh, get away from me. Ugh. Or like the mask culture, like, oh, I can't be around you. That's essentially races like that are the ones that came up with the mask thing. So like that reptilian race where they have the cloth around them. Like I saw in that government building in Prescott Valley where they were whispering in people's ears, put the mask over the nose, and then people would subconsciously do it. They tried it to me, and I told them to go fuck themselves. So it was they weren't expecting somebody to see them. They did it on a subconscious and psionic and telepathic level. And yeah, they're saying beings like that do that. So that's accurate. That was accurately being represented on Voyager. But the Velodians did not appreciate. They came through in a session. They did not appreciate the Vidian
Right.
reference in that. They're like, we're not body harvesters. That was just somebody giving a middle finger to us, and they wanted to actually have their bitches and grievances later on about that. But they wanted to help people, and then they're represented as almost like body harvesters and zombies. So it's like they have the phasia virus and everything. So yeah, I can see why some of these beings are pissed. So and why the force people wanted to bring that out. So okay, do you have anything else?
No, that was my question.
Okay, I'll re-close this then. I now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas at this moment in time. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
But I think from the last time we had Christopher on, we mentioned that we'd like to get to have him do some channeling today. And so perhaps we can eliminate a lot of the guesswork that we're at this level, kind of like perspective, and see if we can get some answers from an elevated perspective.
All right. Yeah. It's interesting you brought that up as of right now, because there is a sense of urgency for that. And I've noticed even during a session I did earlier today, there there were actually 3 or 4 different groups vying for the voice position today, and I always tell them, like, no, I can't have all of you at one time. It's like there were both galactic and earthly ones, and it was in this instance the forest people won out the bid, like they usually do. So I usually use a crystal when I do channeling. Like I bought at the conference. Yep, there's yours right there, Brian. And then I use these crystals to channel through. It makes it so it can be done longer. And I have other of those statues like he showed. I have several in the room here. And also I make these feet too that I use for the forest people specifically when I do channeling with them. And they're very telepathic. There's different groups of them that are in different areas of the country and the planet. And they have different like elders, like how you would have a chieftain, essentially, like tribal groups. Some have Scandinavian mix. Most of them have Lemurian mix from the west side of the United States. And Mu Lemuria, they have kind of a Samoan kind of appearance like that. So they're basically our cousins and relatives. And to break down short, this one that is going to talk today, he is from the Tennessee area, and it comes down into the Appalachia area as well. It goes through Kentucky down into West Virginia and such. And I made contact with him through somebody on Facebook that had painted a picture of him, and he came through to me to come through to her. So And also there was some in Arizona we met, a family of them there, all of it. So I know I got to keep going here. So yeah, they're also telling me to shut up and do this too. So it's also, yeah, give me a minute. Causes energy interactions for channelers and such cause a lot of dry mouth, a lot of cotton mouth. So that time. So, whew, okay, Broston is his name. It's Boston with an R. So, let's see. Okay, Broston, now's your chance. We don't have a lot of time here. So. Indeed, yes. My name is Broston. I'm of well, you would say a local forest people group to him, up from Tennessee, as he said, through Kentucky down into West Virginia. There's another group here in Virginia that he has spoken to through the Sand Bridge and then over into the North Carolina Outer Banks area. We also sometimes tend not to go into Florida as much because the skunk ape that inhabits that area is mentally insane. So we do not inhabit also some of the Appalachia and Great Smoky Mountains because the trolls that live there are insane. So we do not actually inhabit some of those. I do wish to say this because I know they listen. So the bit of humor there. In this context, though, which you were talking, the hurricane, he noticed there are also people that also sometimes will rely on outside sources to assist, which is fine if they are truly benevolent with no conflicting agendas, of course. But in this declaration, there are also outside outlying groups that people call to assist in this way. You mentioned the Galactic Federation. However, within their laws and subset laws, they do not always interfere. Some do in a negative way, others do not. Other groups want to interfere, others do not. There's a lot of red tape, let's just say. Just like you hear stories about the Interstellar Alliance. This particular bit of information is not necessarily true. Who are the Alliance per se? It is all of you listening to this. It is all of you conducting Maharishi effect upon the hurricane and in the weather control system and systems therein. There are multiple areas. It's not just HAARP. There are multiple areas and multiple compartmentalized programs that are firing these storms at each other. They're making it a match to areas that people understand that hurricanes will happen so that they can slowly outreach it to other areas to encroach on other Kabbalistic factions and families. This is what is going on currently. Your efforts to downgrade this have been greatly appreciated, and the subsequent technology empowering them. What they do is they will take an already existing storm front, mostly is what they do, and they make it larger. Now, knowing that it already hits Florida, and storms have for centuries, there were just little ones that have eroded the land. This is why it's shaped the way it is. So, with that knowledge, they knew they could actually send a much larger storm to cause destruction. Like in North Carolina, was it over the lithium mining? That is only one reason. It is actually to cause death, destruction, chaos, magic, divide and conquer. That is the main goal and modus operandi of the enemies of which you speak. So, if you wish, I can answer questions.
Can Broston, can you please tell us, if so many people hadn't collectively prayed and meditated and done ceremony to reduce the effects of Milton, could you tell us what would have happened?
It would have actually been far worse. It would have been twice the size of what you witnessed. Bringing it down to a 3 was actually more of a mockery against those that actually flung it. You see, they always do things in using the trilateral and triangular numbers such as 3, 6s, 9s, and the like. Some of your TV shows like your Star Trek use 7s and 9s. However, using this storm-generated technology, they needed it to be the ultimate power level, which would have been a 6 or a 7. They were shooting for a 9 in some cases. They're trying to alter the technology to do these things so they can have it go across the North American continent, which is impossible currently at this point in time, even with their technological reach. So bringing it down to a 3 was actually very beneficial in, let's just say, giving them the finger in that way. But it was one that was actually more expected by people that lived there. Therefore, there was some empowerment towards keeping it there. I would have preferred it be just a regular storm or one, two at most. But that is just me. There are people. Some people were empowering it via your news programs, basically saying how epically large this storm was going to be. You see, empowering the people. One or more walk in my name concept, or the Maharishi effect. They were trying to turn people's co-creative skills in on themselves. This is something to watch for in coming years.
Typically, do your entities tell you where they're from and give you a background on themselves, or they just relay information?
I myself, yes, I have given him an extensive background of myself. Of all the forest people have given this background information to him at length. The ones that tend not to give their background information tend to be hiding something. So it's something to, like, food for thought, let's just say, for any channelers or would-be channelers out there. Just know, if they are not respectful and do not give you the who, what, where, when, why, and how, I would actually be seriously considering not speaking to those beings.
So where is Broston from?
I am from literally the state of Tennessee, up in the mountains of actually western Tennessee, in that particular area or hillsides therein. My tribe actually exists in that area. Many actually exist throughout your North American continent. We have a elder that exists in that area that has governance over that particular zone. You would see it as more like a governorship, like you have here in the United States. It is very similar, but just in more territories and trades with other groups, even other elemental groups, and also galactic groups as well.
Are you in a physical body or no?
Yes, a physical body. I stand roughly 10 feet tall to 11 feet tall. You would see me as having more of a reddish auburn colored hair. I look like one of you, sort of, but you would see me as more ape-like, but that is not necessarily true. We are all cousins in this big hominid mix together. I am actually a descendant of what you would call a Nakam lineage, based on those that were from ancient Lemuria and other mixes that came from the Atlantean period in your history.
So are you physically on this plane right now, or you're not? Because you say you're from Tennessee, so that would be an earthly manifestation. Are you actually physically here in a body?
Yes, I am actually physically in a body, but if you saw me, if I, let's just say, phased into your frequency, we are in the same plane of existence, just a different frequency, sometimes a dimensional shift. Depends on the different forest people. Some don't know how to do this, just like some of your people. I'm literally in a physical body, but if I phased into your reality, you might not be able to handle my frequency too, given your current energetic evolutionary place where you are at currently.
So, Chris, when you're tapping into entities like Broston, how do you separate from that tapped in state?
So I'm going to speak now, because you're actually not speaking to Chris. You're speaking to Broston. Chris,
Okay.
What happens is that some people like to channel and they do a complete interchange. Chris likes to not completely give up control. So, but right now what it is that there's kind of a blend going on, but who's speaking and talking to you right now is who he is channeling. So in order for Chris to speak, he'd have to come out of channel. Yes. So right now, really the questions should just be directed to Broston. Right.
Okay, so my question then to you, Joanna, is how does he separate out of this state and become Chris again?
Very simply. So Chris has been doing this for very many years. What he actually does when he shows you the crystal, so through an energetic exchange, he will move aside in his energies to allow someone else to come in and share some of the physical body that he is now in. He won't leave it totally. And what he does as far as a protection, in order to, let's say, not call it a possession, is that he makes beings channel through objects so that the energy of that takes the brunt of it, and he connects to the crystal as well.
Yes, so connecting to this crystal allows us for a longer interchange. And I wish to correct you, Joanna, it is technically channeling is a form of possession. So it's no different if some negative entity inhabited the vessel that you are in, but the crystal takes a brunt off of the deleterious effects of this particular interchange. Even though I'm a physical body, the frequency in which I am, let's say, pushing towards him goes through the crystal and refines it down, very much like you have an electrical plant going to an electrical substation going to a house. If I came in with a 100% energy interchange, he would literally burn up. So this is actually a better way to make the channeling longer and more stable, as if you have a crystal intermediary. Food for thought for different channelers out there as well.
Yeah, so my concern is you've established the connection, but indeed, how do you break it if you desire to break it? Do you just say, hey, breaking this connection to the individual, to say Boston, who is speaking now, and how do you break it?
Yes, this we just basically disengage and close the circles off. You see, it is very important to have an open circle, of which I will backdate that in his voice there now in your recording, which he did only in his mind as he brought me through. Then we close the circle, and since his brain is outfitted for doing very quick channelings, it's not to denigrate others, but others have their own rate of disengaging and re-engaging. So therefore his is faster at a faster rate. So therefore I would literally dislodge from him and he would be back talking to you currently.
I have to ask, Boston, have your people been directly affected by Hurricane Helene and then now Milton, or is it you guys shift to that other dimensional phase so you avoid the brunt of the storm? How does that work?
We're still walking the earth. So yes, us and our descendant lineages do get directly affected. They're no different. We're no different than yourself. Just because we can dimensionally shift does not mean that this does not affect us. We had to clear out of that area as well. Even though we were not in Florida per se, the North Carolina one was definitely felt by our people. Our people do inhabit that region as well, either the dimensionally shifting phasing kind or the ones that are more like yourselves. Even though they can, it's just some knowledge was forgotten in some of the descendant lineages like yourselves.
So where do they side? Are they in caves? Are they underground? Like, where do they go when the storm hits? Or they just ride it out in the forest on the surface?
No, they are underground in caves, and like you would see them as dimly lit trenches underneath the ground in cave systems. Some have quartz in them that actually are lit up by the sun, like having a quartz light in someone's house or a skylight in some areas. It is very dimly lit, though we can see in the dark quite efficiently.
Interesting. And so if a human was to wander into that cave system at our normal density, would we be able to see you and your people, or would it be like we'd be there in the same space, but we wouldn't be able to necessarily see you?
Depends on the type of our people. Like myself, I would have to phase shift in and out. Others may even be physical there and throw rocks at people that try to walk into the spaces you see. This has happened also. You see the wood X's in places denoting and bent trees where people need to stay out of different colony areas. This is why some aggression is warranted in some areas. If you feel that you feel you shouldn't be in an area, that is some of our people telepathically warning you off because there is a large colony unit nearby, because there are sentinels and guards in different areas guarding the different areas. This is what people have mainly encountered.
So if there are sentinels and guards, are these individuals who are hostile?
Not always. There are just some that have wandered into an area that may even be being targeted themselves by an etheric source somewhere in a different dimensional state we don't want in our space. Nothing personal to that individual, or that group may not wish communications, or they might be inadvertently putting that colony in danger in some fashion, or in some cases they're just some of our people that are assholes too. So this is just, I wish to say this because we're not all nice people, just like there's not all nice humans either.
Yes, at the end of the X-Files, one of the segments they had, it was season 11, episode 4, Lost Art of Forehead Sweat, in which they attribute the Mandela effect to Joseph Mengele. They call it the Mengele effect. An extraterrestrial comes off of the ship and throws the book at Mulder and says, here, everything you ever wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask. We don't want you in our in our space. We're building a dome around the earth because you guys are liars and you keep drugging all of our people, and so we don't want you in outer space or inner space or whatever. But here's all the answers to everything that you wanted to know. If that's why you're going to reach us, and then we're talking about a physical reaching, but we do know that there are interdimensional beings, and there is an interdimensional reaching in which entities, good and bad, can come through portals or through channeling sources, much like you're saying now. We have about 5 more minutes. Is there anything that you'd specifically like to address and tell us?
The only thing I wish to address is be careful of what's your term, Greeks bearing gifts. If you hear of any galactic...
It's funny, I was married to a Greek guy.
If you hear of any channelings out there of the earth being saved by external sources, this is incorrect, even though there are other forces that wish to help more readily, but they're wrapped in galactic Senate red tape, let's just say. But in this instance, they're the only alliance on your earth, other than some white hat groups, I will say, is yourselves changing these events for the better. If you do not like these outcomes you sing on your news programs, you do not like this weather control, change it. You are this change, you see. It does not mean you have to draw a sword. You just have to be present, holding the space. This is
yes, be the change.
Yes.
That's something I say all the time.
I am closing conduit currently, but I thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Boston.
See, I can do that much faster than some other channelers can. That's why they jump in and out like that. So it takes less energy for me to do that than my sessions. So and going through a crystal, I can do it for longer periods. So
now, can you explain some of the tell us a little bit about your website and some of the services that you offer?
Yes, thelifting.net is where people can reach us. And through that, I do 1 hour sessions for the most part. You'll see that on the services tab on the website. But if people want to email us, it's through the appointments tab through the website. And the services I offer are clearings, getting attachments off people, getting rid of curses, possessions, things of that nature off of people, and oppressive entities in their home. Past life regression, I do that a little bit, and working through people's SSP periods, and their memories. But for the most part, it's getting rid of anything oppressive out of their homes and themselves.
And a large library of conversations that we've had on a lot of topics.
A large library of conversations on the website, or all the discussions we've had are there.
Do you ever worry that when you're channeling and you're opening that channel, that a negative entity comes in and does try to possess you and not leave? Do you ever worry?
Yes. I actually had that at my earlier in my life, where that's why I was afraid of doing the full switch out, where it's 50-50, because I had a negative possession earlier in my life that spooked me enough to be able to regulate that. I just plain don't allow it. I hold the space, and I basically say no negativity is going to occupy this space. No negative entities or anything that will do harm will enter me in that space. It's only the true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. What I mean by that is true benevolence, meaning only benevolent conversation and a being with no conflicting agendas. Is there might be benevolence, but they might have a different opinion, or a different agenda other than your own, that might not be conducive to what you want to say or want to do. Yeah. Yes,
absolutely. And Joanna, any final thoughts?
No, I just hope people, find these conversations interesting. We're really all about, we talk about a lot of things. Sometimes it's scary. We never have a conversation without wanting people to know what they can do about it, how they can learn more about themselves and empower them. So we're not about scaring people at all, but we want people to understand what's really going on around them, so that they can now choose and make choices that are good for themselves.
Excellent. I want to thank you both for joining us. It's a pleasure meeting you, Joanna. I think your story of meeting one another is absolutely fascinating. Yeah. I know that I don't know about my past life experiences, but I was in Wisconsin when I was coming out of MK Ultra, and I was at a place called the Nice Ash. It was a hookah smoking thing. a place, which I liked it because I like the name Nice Ash. I'm going to the Nice Ash. And the Wi-Fi password was not the FBI. So I was in, and they had okay coffee. And I remember looking across the street, and there was a building there, and I saw it catch on fire. And it wasn't catching on fire, but I saw it catch on fire. So a couple of days later, I went over and I talked to one of the receptionists there, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to take the pictures of your pictures because I see things in the pictures. Would that be okay?" She said, "Yes." And I said, by the way, was this place ever on fire?" And she said, "Yes, it was." And I said, like, in the 1800s? She said, "Yes, it was on fire in the 1800s. And I said, "Oh, I see it now." I said, "This place was like a brothel, and the people that worked here, they worked in conjunction with the police, the sheriffs, and they were drugging people." And she said, "Now you're scaring me." And I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "Because this used to be a brothel, and before that, it was a pharmacy." And I said, "Okay, so what time do you get off?" And she said, "About 2." I said, "How about if I come like 2:15 and take pictures of the pictures?" She's like, "Yeah, Penny, that'd be good." So, some of us have like visions, and we see things that actually transpired in different timelines, and then we validate them, or we get them validated for us. Our mission here on Agent X11 Hollywood Dark Journalist, so we talk about broad spectrum things. We talk about sex trafficking, about the evil satanic forces that are currently on this planet in Hollywood, some that are demonically possessed by interdimensional beings, some that are demons. So these are, some of the broad spectrum things that we speak on Agent X11 Hollywood Dark Journalist.